Hey everyone. I need to prepare a couple of things and then we will start. First I need to create a slide, I think. So create now and share the link. And we will also have, or we should have some guests today from Prefect who will join. Oh, we have the first one. He will join now. And I will share the link now in our Telegram channel.
Awesome. Hey, Alexi. Pleasure meeting you. I think this is the first time.
Hello. Yeah, this is indeed the first time. Oh, you have a nice cap.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is some new merchandise Prefect has been dropping the past couple months, but yeah.
Okay. What do I need to do to get one?
I honestly don't know. I feel like we could talk to probably one of our probably VP of marketing, and we probably can get some merchandise shipped out to you. But yeah, I could probably let one of them know, and we can see what happens.
Because if I do the next office hours in the Prefect cap, it would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So this is actually our first office hours. We did not have them in a while. Well, not first, like excluding the lounge. So what will happen during these office hours is I already shared the link to Slido. Using this link, you can ask questions. I put it in the Telegram channel and on YouTube. So you can ask questions there. And I don't see many questions. So before the questions, I will just share my screen so you can see what you need to do to start asking questions. Before that, I want to make a few announcements. So first of all, today is the deadline for the Prefect homework, I think. So let me quickly check it. But anyways, we will actually extend this. Many of you asked to extend the deadline. We will extend the deadline. We will communicate the new due date on the Telegram channel and on Slack. You will probably have quite a few days. You will also have an extension, a couple of days extension for the weights and biases homework. So this week we are catching up. And if you want, you can already start the week 4 about deployment. Let me actually open our plan. MLOps Zoomcamp. So if you finished with all the homeworks, you can start with week 4. There is already homework there, but if you need time to take a breath and catch up, then on this week we will actually do that. So this week, you can tie all the loose ends, finish all the homework that you haven't finished. So yeah, you will have time this week. And if you're going ahead, if you're slightly ahead, then for deployment, we already have the materials from the last year and the homework. And for the monitoring module, we already have the materials, not the homework yet, but you can start watching. And then actually, like in 3 modules, it will be almost over. And you will work on the project. And right now, I will go back to this screen. And in the meantime, we have 2 guests today from Prefect. I would like to ask them to introduce themselves, because I don't think I had a chance to introduce you during the intro meeting. Intro stream, I only talked about Jeff. So please take a few moments and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Yeah. My name is Sahil Ringwala. I'm a solutions engineer here at Prefect.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bianca, and I am a product advocate solutions engineer here at Prefect.
What kind of content did you contribute to the course?
Sure. Sahil, do you want me to go first or do you want to go first? Sahil?
Yeah,
to you.
Like
yeah, Bianca, you can go first.
Okay. So I contributed section 3.2 in module 3. So that is essentially how to get started with self-hosting a Prefect server. And with that example, we also included some just like simple scripts in order to run them and test out your connection to the server and see what that looks like in the server UI. So that would be my contribution. So if anybody has any questions on that, feel free to reach out.
Yep, and then I did
just don't sorry, just don't ask for the solution for the homework. Like you can ask anything you want about Prefect, but do not ask for specific answers.
Yes. Yep. Don't ask for specific answers. I second that.
Yeah. Sorry.
No worries. And then I contributed 4.6, just going to be the updates for the deployment pieces. Keep a lookout for the updated video later on today, as well as some source code associated with that as well. But yeah, walks through the deployment as well as the kind of the backfilling portion of that, and then how the Prefect deployment side, how that portion changes with our new updates.
Yeah, I think I should take some of my words back because I said that it's almost ready, right? We still miss the updated prefecting because the video we have here for batch is slightly outdated. It's from Prefect beta last year, which more or less like conceptually is still the same, but the devil is in details.
Exactly.
So
keep a lookout for that change in a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I think I will start with answering questions. But since we have 2 people from Prefect here, please take this as an opportunity to ask them questions. What is needed to pass the final project? I have seen some scoring grid, but what is the bare minimum? So I will go to the scoring grid again. So this is, if we go to projects, and we have this problem statement. So what you need to do is basically cover all these things here. And yeah, you just go through this criteria, and for each of the points, you try to do as much as you can. But of course, like your project does not need to be perfect in order to pass the project. The passing grade is roughly the half. So if you, let's say, for some reasons get no time to work on monitoring, it's not the end of the world. You will still be able to pass the project, provided that you finish the other things. So again, up to you. You decide how exactly you want to invest time in your project. Some people, I don't know, spend only 5 hours on the project. Some people spend 50 hours. It's all up to you. And yeah, the passing grade is roughly the half. So yeah, you can use that in order to guide yourself and decide like how much time on each thing you want to spend. Like for example, maybe you don't want to spend time learning Terraform. You should, but maybe you don't have time to do it right now. Then you can skip it this time and then come back to this later, because all the videos will stay available. So I hope it answers the questions. So the bare minimum is like up to you. You can just use these points, and then half of them will give you, like, you will pass the project. How to save results of MLflow experiment, MLflow DB, when working in Prefect Cloud? So I guess one of you should take this.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways you can store and save those results. One is if you want to store in like a different like cloud infra, so you can store it within like an S3 bucket and be able to pull that from like a remote location and then run that in whatever kind of fashion you want to run that against. All of that can be done in a local fashion without using Prefect Cloud. So through our open source product, just pulling from a remote location. Under the hood, we're using Bodo 3. So you'll be still interacting with those external systems. So with that, you can convert that same exact deployment pattern from a local deployment and locally using our open source product. You can use that with Prefect Cloud as well. And that'll be using it with like the personal plan with that Prefect Cloud plan.
And maybe I would add on top of that I'm not sure you actually need to save MLflow-DB. Probably instead of that, you need to configure your MLflow in such a way that you don't use SQLite, you use like Postgres or something else. So it has an independent remote database, and then you just track your experiments from your Prefect flow, right? But then you don't save the database, because all the experiments are saved in a Postgre or MySQL database that is deployed remotely. So this is how you should do this. But then again, in Prefect, there is an option to save artifacts in Prefect Cloud. There was another question about a similar thing in Slack. I remember seeing it. Like, what is the difference between MLflow and Prefect Cloud? Because in both cases, you can save artifacts, right? So maybe one of you can answer this question.
Yeah. Honestly, you can use those artifacts within our ecosystem. We offer your own way to save and reuse those components. It's only it makes sense if other folks are using that same workspace. If you want to share those components, share those artifacts within Prefect work task and flows really easily, you can just convert and create an artifact on our end. But of course, if you're more accustomed using it with MLflow and just doing it more pure Pythonically, then you can of course do that and just wrap it with any sort of flow or task and wrap that helper function with that and gain some observability with that as well.
Thank you. Are we going to need cloud to do the final project? So here I would assume you ask about cloud like AWS or Google Cloud, but then we can also talk about Prefect Cloud. So I will answer the general cloud question, and then I think I can take both, and then anyways, so yes, well, maybe not yes, you do not have to use cloud. You can do everything locally. You can use things like local stack if you want, or actually, if I go back to this criteria, you see that cloud is only one dimension. So you can get 0 points for the cloud component, for the cloud part, but still pass the project. So it's up to you to decide how exactly you want to do that. But then also you see this or part in this in cloud, you can deploy your thing on Kubernetes. And Kubernetes considers a cloud, air quotes, even though if it could be deployed locally. So maybe you can use kind, which is Kubernetes and Docker or some other local Kubernetes, and deploy there. It will be local, but you will still get some points for the cloud part. Because like in real life, you would not use local Kubernetes, you would use a remote Kubernetes, but the way you do this is more or less the same. Yeah, I know in some countries using cloud can be problematic. And I also know, like, if, for example, you don't want to use your credit card, could be difficult. So yeah, up to you. And then speaking of Prefect Cloud, yes, you of course can use Prefect Cloud for your final project. You don't have to, but it's certainly an option. You do need to use an orchestrator, which is here. And then if you go with Prefect, you can go with local Prefect or cloud Prefect. And I don't know, do you want to add anything?
You explained that perfectly, Alexi. There's no need for Prefect Cloud. It's just with that, you get a little more just cloud features, but with full orchestration, we don't gatekeep on any of the orchestration features. So you're able to do your flows, task, retries, caching, everything you would want to do with the orchestrator, you're able to do with our open source product.
Yes, and I will add to that, there is a free tier, which I recommend going straight for that if you would like to just get an idea of what Prefect Cloud is like. So no need to pay us any money.
Okay, so I resolve this. So what is the deadline for the project? For that, I will try to find Okay, I need to put the link here. I think we have a deadline calendar. It's not a calendar, it's a spreadsheet, but let me show you how to find it. So go to cohorts to 2023, and then we have deadline calendar. It's just a spreadsheet, and it says that the project starts on the 6th of July, and then it lasts for 2 weeks. And then after that, you have project evaluation, which is pre-reviewing. So 20th of July would be the deadline for the project, but then you have 2 attempts. If for some reasons you take vacation or you don't have time during this period, or I don't know, whatever, maybe you joined the course late and you're still catching up, so you are not able to submit your project by the end of this period. Then what you can do is you can start working on the project as a second attempt. So you will still have time to work on the project. So we have 2 attempts, and you need to submit your project either as attempt 1 or attempt 2, or for example, you can submit it as attempt 1, you do not pass it for some reasons, then you improve your project, and then you have a second chance to submit the same project. So this is where you find the deadlines. Let's run this one. So yeah, that's the deadline. If you already started working on the project, good for you, you can. But if you did not, maybe you can already start thinking what kind of data set you want to use for your project. It will be helpful because this is, from what I hear from other students, this is the biggest problem. It's not like what tools to use and how to do this, but what kind of data to use for the project, what kind of problem it should be. Seems like a simple thing, but for some reasons, many people struggle with this part, with getting started. So you can help yourself by starting thinking about this now. So then by the time we finish all the modules, you already have some ideas what you want to work on. Okay, I have almost no experience with Docker. Do you strongly recommend checking ML Zoomcamp module 5? I do. Do you guys have any recommendations about Docker? If somebody wants to learn more about Docker.
Do have recommendations for using Docker Compose to host Prefect server, and we do have a pretty good Medium article that one of our engineers wrote to do that. Of course, it's not so much beginners Docker, like when you're starting with like no experience whatsoever, but if you would like to approach it that way and learn about how to use Prefect in conjunction with Docker, we do have that article that we can offer up as well. As far as getting started resources, I'm sure that there are some pretty good ones out there. I don't know, Sahil, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah. So I found that article. Alexi, if I share the article in this chat, is there a way for me to just send this
You
link?
can send it to the chat, and then I will put this to YouTube.
Perfect. Awesome. So let me send it into the chat. This is just a way to self-host our Prefect server. So our API, and then using Docker as well with that. So it's a pretty nifty tutorial. It's like a single Medium article. So with that, you'll be able to, it does use a little bit of our like a previous version of Prefect, but there shouldn't be that large of a difference within Prefect 2.0 from that previous version.
Then I'll add another shameless plug. So ML Zoomcamp Module 5 is a good resource. We do not cover Docker Compose there, and Bianca mentioned Docker Compose. So if you want to have a slightly more advanced tutorial about Docker, then you can go to our data engineering Zoomcamp. And it's not focused on ML like ML Zoomcamp. It shows more like how do you set up Postgre locally, and then we also cover Docker Compose and things like that. So yeah, you go to week 1, and then there's this part, Docker plus Postgres, which many people say that this is a good introduction to Docker. So yeah, maybe check that, because we also cover Docker Compose there, which is a very convenient tool, especially for like when you need to run something more complex, when you need to run multiple Docker containers. Then yeah, we actually also cover it in ML Zoomcamp. Oops. but we do this in the latest, I think, yeah, in 10th module. So when we talk about Kubernetes, we also partly a bit cover Docker Compose. So you can look at module 5 and then unit 4 of module 10. Yeah, it describes what Docker Compose is. But this one is a bit more complex, maybe more useful if you want to run Prefect with Docker Compose. But yeah, you should, either way, regardless of where you learn Docker, what kind of resource you use, you should learn it. Like this is, if you don't learn Docker, yeah, like this is a tool that everyone uses, so you better know it. Of course, like probably you can still land a job without knowing it and then learn at work, but your life will be so much easier if you learn it now. Like the biggest problem is actually installing it. If you have Windows, it could be tricky. On Mac, I also heard it's not easy. But yeah, if you use Linux, it's just one command. And then you have Docker. So yeah, you should invest time into learning more about that. Since the homeworks are getting pushed back, would the project's deadlines be affected or stay the same? I think, yeah, let's see. Probably we'll push them back a little. Let's see. Anyways, I'll think about that. But yeah, it makes sense to, since we delay the homeworks, we extend the deadlines, the projects will be also extended. Please, can we get a small extension for module 3 Prefect? You probably missed the beginning of the stream because I said that everyone gets a small extension for module 3. This week is for catching up. Yeah, the deployment homework deadline will be postponed as well. When using Prefect Cloud, we don't need to set up the 3.5 deployment to point to the AWS bucket stuff, but point to Prefect Cloud. I'm confused what goes there.
Yeah, I can handle that. So with Prefect Cloud and just Prefect open source, that's just two ways on how the Prefect API, Prefect server, on how it's hosted. Prefect Cloud will be hosting it, and then with open source, you would be hosting that API. So that's the kind of distinguishment between Prefect Cloud. That's like a separate kind of system. And then once you're kind of choosing if you want to do Prefect Cloud or the open source product, at that point, then to create your ML pipeline, at that point, you figure out the location on where you need to point to AWS bucket, which bucket you want to point to, or just which cloud info you want to use to actually orchestrate your workflow. And that's the separate kind of a separate entity and separate idea itself. But of course, on both elements, you're able to use open source or Prefect Cloud, and that's kind of that first distinguishment of understanding which tool to use for your pipeline.
Then this is also to you, I think. Deployment YAML in project is only for the base settings, right? All the detailed parameters should be set from the CLI with Prefect deploy, right?
Exactly. So Prefect deploy allows you to kind of register that that flow with the UI with the server, and then with that you're able to kind of fine tune the configuration of that deployment thereafter. So the schedule associated with it, if you want to add any sort of tags, the parameters you want to pull in, all of that can be fine tuned with that deployment.yaml right after creating that.
Okay, thank you. On a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you recommend to learn Terraform for people new to working as developers? In any case, could you provide good learning materials? Do you want to take this one before I try to answer that?
I can't necessarily speak to on a scale from 1 to 10. I do know that it's actually a very common use case where people actually are actively using Terraform. So we do also have guides for setting up. So Prefect in different environments using Terraform. So we can also offer that as well if that's something that you are interested in using. So we have, I believe, Terraform modules for setting up Prefect agents, things of that nature. So definitely something that's worth exploring. As far as a 1 to 10 scale, I mean, I think honestly, anything that makes your life easier is always a 10 in my book to learn. So that would be my personal recommendation. Any other inputs, Sahil or Alexi?
Perfect way to describe it. Yeah, a lot of times folks use Terraform just to kind of productionalize a lot of their workflows in order to just be as hands-off as possible so that you're only focusing on the actual development of your models and the actual just data science work that you need to do.
Yeah, I would add to that that I wouldn't give it a 10 because I personally hate the syntax of Terraform. I don't know who decided that it should look exactly like that, but it's a very convenient tool. There are other tools, also infrastructure as code. It just happened that Terraform is the most popular one. So chances are when you join a company, they will probably use Terraform for managing that, for managing infrastructure. So it makes sense to invest time in learning Terraform. The syntax is kind of strange, but with time you get used to that. Speaking of good learning materials, it's one of the, we have the best practices module here in MLOps Zoomcamp. We cover Terraform there. We also cover Terraform in our data engineering Zoomcamp. So these two would be good learning materials. But I think the important part here is just practicing. So yeah, it's very convenient. And also in the data engineering course, we used Google Cloud. And in Google Cloud, you can only get 3 months of free usage, right? And students who used Terraform for provisioning all the infrastructure, at the end of this period, they created a new account and just recreated everything they needed just by executing one command. It was super convenient, so they were very happy that they actually invested time in building this Terraform. Like in configuring everything in Terraform, because it saved a lot of time. So I do recommend, maybe I would give it 8 or 9 to learn Terraform, and I would give it a 10 to learn some infrastructure as code too. So it's definitely a good tool you should have in your tool belt if you want to work as a dev. It's definitely a very good tool. And I see that there are some, like if we speak about Prefect, there are some Terraform providers. And I think the next question is, okay, the next question is, like, there was a question about, yeah, this one. I wanted to answer this one because it's a bit related. Can you use exclusively local stack for the final project and count it as cloud? I would say yes, but the reason I think it's related, because for local stack, you don't really have this Terraform provider, or there is a provider, but I think you need to pay for this. I think it's only a part of the paid offering from local stack. So yeah, well, I don't know, maybe something changed over the last year. Last year I checked, it was not free. Maybe now it's different. But yeah, if you just use local stack, then you will get, do you have this thing here? So then you can get 2 points out of 4 for the cloud part here. Or if it's if you use Terraform for provisioning local stack, then you can get 4 points. So it kind of counts as cloud. Okay, I'm answering that. Is it okay to do end-to-end taxi project as final project? Because we have done module by module with different virtual environment during the course. No, you should not use the same data set for the final project. So for your final project, you should use a different data set, not taxi trip data set. Just use your imagination. Like, it's just lazy to use the same data set. And then would you just use the same, like all the DAX, everything you created would kind of be the same if you use the same data set. I think it's, in my opinion, it's boring. Yeah, so don't use the taxi trip data set for your final project, choose something else. And then here in the data engineering Zoomcamp, we actually have this datasets.md file with, oh no, it's a different one. I think somewhere, maybe here in projects, yeah, we have datasets, which gives you a good list of different datasets, and you can use it for this MLOps Zoomcamp too. And maybe do you have any good resources where people can find datasets or get inspiration for their projects?
I'm trying to rack my brain for some good data sets. I know a lot of times I just grab them from like Kaggle, like random Kaggle competitions. There's just really nice just data sets that you already know are just well used, and folks are using it for other kind of just learning projects. But yeah, beyond that, Bianca, do you know any other kind of data sets that or any resources to find data sets?
I am very partial to bioinformatics data sets, just given my background. So I would recommend checking out, basically just typing in bioinformatics data sets, and you'll see a bunch of public ones become available. I also think that there may be some available through PubMed as well, which should be open source. So I would recommend checking out PubMed. But of course, that's up to everyone else, whether or not they want to use biological data and train some models on that. So that would be my recommendation there, just off the top of my head. That's at least what I'm most familiar with.
How difficult would it be to use these sort of data sets without background, without any knowledge in biology?
That's the thing. Without any previous experience with biological background, I'm assuming that there might be some good data sets out there. I know that there are some for actually might be available for Python users as well. There are ecological data sets that have sort of measurement data when it comes to, I believe, different flower species. And I remember using that to run statistical analysis on the data in that set. So that might be, there are definitely easier ones to use. Going up in complexity, we're probably looking at genetic sequencing data, which in that case, that might be a complete jump for someone that's not experienced in that before. But I could take a look around and see if I can make any propositions for additional data sets, if that's something that would be of interest. If there is anyone out there who has a little bit of biology experience or just is curious, I'd be happy to send some information your way.
I think here an interesting, so what I heard from your recommendation is find something you're interested in, could be bioinformatics, and then try to find a data set about that. And then you'll have a lot of fun actually working on this project.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Should we use the videos already in the playlist for Module 4 deployment, or there will be a live tutorial? There will be no live tutorial, but there will be an update for one of the units in Module 4, which is about Prefect. So the video I made about Prefect was 1 year ago, and Prefect has changed since then. Conceptually, it's still the same, but some details changed. So there will be an update, but more or less the video will stay the same. You can start watching the videos about deployment now. Just wait a little bit for the video about Prefect, but when it comes to, let me just open this.
Well, I can speak on that as well. Just the previous versioning of Prefect was using video that Alexei ran through probably last year. That was just creating the deployment programmatically via like Python object. That you can still do in the current version of Prefect. We introduced the concept of work pools, workers, and projects. So you get another layer to couple your workflows into a shared deployment pattern. So that's what this updated video will walk through. But nonetheless, the similar video that Alexei has already placed within our GitHub repo, that same deployment pattern, you can still follow through with our docs. And it's just using our create deployment helper function.
So this one, batch, I don't remember if I actually used Prefect in this video, but then I used Prefect here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because here I think it's just a script, right, without Prefect.
Exactly.
It was some time ago.
That update right here, that's a snippet. That same deployment build from flow, that same exact snippet would work with our current versioning. But we've introduced this concept of work pools and workers, so that's what this new update will be covering as well.
Okay, thank you. And the last question for today: when using Prefect Cloud, it seems that all files created within the worker runtime are deleted once it finishes the run. Is it correct?
So I do want to know just what type of question, or like just a little bit more details on like the type of files that they're trying to create. Are they trying to state like maybe prefect files? Prefect files, there are ways that there are files that we generate that like the deployment.yaml file, the prefect.yaml file, other files that we generate just to help with your deployment pattern. But the files that you want to use within your workflow, so such as like if there's like a like data that you want to pull in your workflow, that can be tied on the same level of your flow code existing. So within that same GitHub repo or within your S3 bucket, wherever you want to use that locally stored data set or locally stored file, you're able to couple it and kind of pair it in that same directory where your file exists, and then you're able to use that within your workflow. And that file wouldn't delete; it would be just coupled with that workflow when you create it.
And yeah, you can also follow up with folks from Prefect in Slack. You can just ask this question in Slack and add a bit more details, like what kind of file you expect to be there and why it's deleted. Maybe add a little bit more information. Yeah, maybe you found a bug, or maybe there's something else. Maybe you need to do it slightly differently. So in Slack, it's probably easier to help you. Okay, the last one. Well, when will be the next office hours event? I think we should have one before the project, because usually students have a lot of questions about the projects. So we should think in a couple of weeks. So when it's at the end of June, I think. Yep, that's all for today. We managed to cover all the questions. Thanks a lot for joining us today, for answering questions about Prefect. And thanks everyone for joining us today, for asking questions. And again, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask them in Slack, and yeah, we'll be happy to answer them.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Want to say anything before we finish? No?
I think it's a pleasure. Of course, any other questions, ask away in our Slack channel, and we'll be able to help you and answer any sort of related questions with that.
Maybe for those who watch this after the course is over, what will be the best way to contact you personally after the course is over? Like, do you have some sort of Prefect community where people can find you, or what's the best way?
Yes, I would. Oh, go ahead, Sahil.
Awesome. Yeah, we have a great kind of Slack community channel with thousands of engineers that use Prefect in production settings and pet projects, kind of all kind of sorts of folks that use Prefect in different cases. And that we have dedicated channels for helping folks on different infrastructure related questions, Prefect related questions, getting started kind of guides, wherever you want kind of question hub and even more information, you will find it within our community Slack channels.
Bianca, want to add anything?
Yes, we can also make a link available as well, like a public invitation link. If you all are interested in joining our community Slack for any reason, you want to go over there, ask some specific Prefect related questions, feel free to do so. Other than that, feel free to either tag myself or Sahil in the MLOps Zoomcamp channel as well if you have any Prefect related questions, and we'll be able to help you out there too. Aside from that, happy engineering. Best of luck to you all.
And I have the link to Prefect community. I will post it in live chat right now.
Fantastic.
Okay. Thanks a lot for joining me today. Thanks everyone for joining us, and have fun learning more stuff. And see you in a couple of weeks.
Take care.